All right, so get this. Today we're diving into Luciferianism.
Here we go.
Now, I know you're probably thinking fire, brimstone, right?
Yeah.
Maybe even some flashbacks to that satanic panic.
Mm.
But you got to trust me on this. The excerpts that you sent over from, what is it, Adversarial Light?
Yeah.
By Michael W. Ford.
Yeah.
It paints, well, a much more complex picture, let's just say
It's
that.
wild how much Luciferianism is misunderstood. I mean,
Yeah.
Ford, he defines it as this like pathway to self-empowerment, and always constantly like transforming yourself, always working towards becoming a, as he calls it, a divine intelligence.
It's becoming a divine intelligence. Okay, interesting. So it's not about like pledging yourself to some kind of underworld overlords, but more about like igniting your own inner potential. Is that kind of, am I getting that right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like think of it as shedding all that dogma, embracing knowledge, and taking control of, your own spiritual journey. And that journey, at least as Adversarial Light suggests, often starts with kind of questioning everything you think you know.
Which, okay, so that brings us to Lucifer himself, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we've all heard the whole fallen angel cast out of heaven thing, but what's his perspective on all that? I mean, he doesn't seem like the type to shy away from figures that some might find, let's just say, controversial.
He really doesn't. But instead of like this evil, malevolent figure, Adversarial Light, it presents Lucifer as, get this, the bringer of light.
Okay.
Yeah. The embodiment of wisdom, self-illumination, and all that.
So less about fire and brimstone and more about illumination. You've got me intrigued, I got to admit.
Think of Lucifer as like this catalyst, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's pushing humanity towards self-awareness, consciousness. Ford even links him to figures like, the Babylonian Hello. You've got the Greek Prometheus. These are like archetypes of rebels who brought knowledge and, challenged the way things were, the established order, all that.
I see. Okay. I'm starting to understand the appeal now. Knowledge is this like act of rebellion. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I can get behind that. But there's another figure in Adversarial Light that I got to ask about because, wow, she's something else. Lilith. I mean, talk about someone who challenged the status quo.
Oh, Lilith. Yeah, she's a whole other level. She embodies this like raw, totally untamed force. Ford ties her to darkness, desire, and those, primal instincts that society's always telling us to suppress.
Right.
Think like Babylonian Lamashtu, or even those captivating but kind of dangerous Greek Lemmier,
Like those sirens.
Yeah, exactly. Alluring, powerful, and all women.
And Luciferianism says, instead of shying away from that, you lean in. That's a pretty bold stance.
It really is, and it really speaks to this like core Luciferian principle of balance. It's about recognizing and integrating your shadow self rather than pretending it's not there, that it's not a part of you. And this like embracing of knowledge that we're often told to suppress.
Well, it leads us to another group that Ford talks about, the Watchers. Have you ever felt like some things are like off limits just because they challenge the accepted narrative?
Yeah.
Right. Like there's power in knowledge, and sometimes the people in control, they want to keep it that way, keep it hidden.
It's for themselves. Exactly.
Right.
That's where the Watchers come in. Adversarial Light portrays these fallen angels as, get this, teachers.
Teachers, okay.
Yeah. Sharing knowledge with humanity, forbidden knowledge, that ultimately kind of sparks this big shift in consciousness.
Forbidden knowledge, huh?
Mm-hmm.
So we're not just talking about esoteric theories here. This is practical stuff too, right?
Exactly. Ford connects specific Watchers to these like advancements that really shaped civilization. You've got Azazel, he's connected with metalworking. Then there's Shemiaza, he's associated with herbalism, and Kokabel, he's linked to astrology. These skills, they empowered humanity in a way, right? They made us less reliant on, divine intervention, on the whims of the gods.
Oh, I see what you mean. That's really fascinating.
Yeah.
It makes you think about how even like these simple advancements could be seen as a threat to like the powers that be.
Absolutely. And that right there, that challenge to the established norms, that pursuit of self-empowerment through knowledge, that's Luciferian thought at its core.
So how does this all translate into like actual practice? If knowledge is power, how does a Luciferian actually tap into that power, wield it? How does that actually work?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting. Ford, he gets into the practical side of Luciferian practice. He explores techniques like sigil magic, which he draws from Austin Osman Spare. He was a pretty influential occultist.
Okay, sigil magic, I got to be honest, that sounds kind of intriguing. But break it down for me, like what's so important about it?
So basically with sigil magic, it's about like harnessing your own internal power, right? Like your will, and using that to make your desires a reality. And the cool thing is, Ford emphasizes how accessible it is. He suggests that it's a practice anyone can use,
Wow.
like incorporate it into their life.
Interesting. So you don't need like ancient incantations or, these elaborate rituals. That's pretty cool. Magic as like this tool for self-transformation. And it's available to anyone if you're willing to learn.
Exactly. And Ford also points to astral projection and dream work. He says there are ways to like explore the deeper levels of yourself and tap into this like, hidden well of knowledge.
Which, when you think about it, makes sense, right? If you're trying to like discover yourself, exploring your own mind just seems like, the logical next step. But Ford doesn't stop there, does he? He also gets into some, well, pretty complex esoteric concepts.
You think about the Klipoth.
Yeah, that's the one. And I gotta say, it all sounds a bit intimidating, to be honest.
I can see why. The Klipoth you see in traditional Kabbalah, they're often seen as these like negative, even demonic forces that hang out on like the dark side of the tree of life.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So instead of shying away, Luciferianism says, confront these darker aspects like head on. That's intense.
It is. It's intense shadow work. But Ford, he sees the Klipoth not just as forces of chaos, he sees them as potential sources of, power and knowledge. He even outlines like rituals you can use to work with them. Yeah. He suggests that by facing these darker parts of ourselves and the universe, we can integrate them into a more, I guess you could say, a more holistic understanding of, everything.
Which, again, goes back to that Luciferian principle of balance, right?
Yeah.
Like integrating the light and shadow, the conscious and unconscious.
Yeah.
Bringing it all together.
Exactly. And this whole exploration of like hidden knowledge, of integrating these shadow aspects, it leads to, well, another fascinating thread in Adversarial Light. This connection Ford draws between Luciferianism and, get this, Satanism.
Okay, now we're getting into some, let's just say, interesting territory, the comparison you see a lot. But I'm curious, how does Ford address that?
He doesn't shy away from it at all. Actually, he has a whole section where he unpacks the relationship between the two. He even talks about Anton LaVey, the founder of the Church of Satan, and his influence on like modern Luciferian thought.
So he's acknowledging there's like this historical link there, but how does he separate the two? Where does he say they differ?
So he says that while, both embrace rebellion and they both challenge traditional beliefs, he says that Luciferianism, at least how he defines it, it goes beyond, that materialist focus that's often associated with, LaVey and Satanism.
I see. So it's not just about like indulging your desires, but rather harnessing those desires, that energy, and using them for something more.
Exactly. You got it. Ford emphasizes the spiritual side of Luciferianism, this quest for, self-knowledge and understanding that goes beyond just the physical.
Which, now that you mention it, totally makes sense when you think back to that whole divine intelligence idea we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
There's definitely like this element of transcendence there. I don't know. Would you agree?
100%. It's about taking those material desires, those primal instincts, and making them part of like a much bigger process of spiritual evolution. And Ford, he connects this whole journey of self-discovery to all this like ancient mythology, all these different esoteric traditions.
That's one of the things I found so interesting about Adversarial Light. The way he takes all these threads of ancient wisdom and weaves them together. He connects Lucifer to figures like the Egyptian god Set, Prometheus, even that Persian deity, Ahriman.
It's like he's highlighting this like universal archetype,
Huh.
It's the individual who dares to, challenge authority, who seeks knowledge even when they're told no, that's forbidden. And that archetype, that rebellious spirit, that's like the core of the Luciferian path, at least according to Ford.
It's about like finding that spark of rebellion within yourself and using it to, create your own destiny, become the master of your own life. All of that is a really powerful message, even if you don't, believe in every single aspect of like Luciferian philosophy.
Absolutely. And it's a message that Ford really drives home when he starts talking about, the Luciferian approach to magic.
Okay, now we're getting into some territory that I think it's safe to say both fascinates and kind of scares people. So what's Ford's take on magic? What role does he say it plays in Luciferian practice? So we're not talking about like, conjuring fireballs or summoning demons, are we?
Not exactly, no. For Ford, magic is more about like shaping your reality, using your will and your intention. He's big on self-mastery, really understanding the power of your own mind.
I see. So it's less about controlling outside forces and more about like harnessing your own inner power
Right.
to get what you want.
Exactly. He even gets into specifics like, remember sigil magic and astral projection. He sees those as tools, ways to tap into your own potential.
Tools that anyone can use if they're willing to put in the work, right? I like that. Magic not as this like supernatural ability, but a skill you can develop, a practice.
Yeah, it's about becoming like the architect of your own life, shaping your reality through will and intention. And honestly, I think that really gets at like the heart of what Ford's exploring in Adversarial Light.
It's about giving power back to the individual, encouraging self-discovery,
Yeah.
and taking responsibility for your own potential.
It's about asking questions, challenging the limits, and deciding, forging your own path instead of just blindly following someone else's.
Yeah, I got that. And we've covered a lot today, but got to remind everyone listening, this is like just scratching the surface. Adversarial Light it's a lot, to say the least, full of like, little nuances and layers.
It's one of those books you can come back to again and again, and you always walk away with something new. And at the end of the day, it's really up to the reader to figure out what clicks with them, how they want to use these ideas in their own life.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of the point of all our deep dives, right? It's not about giving you all the answers.
Yeah.
It's about sparking that curiosity, giving you the tools, the knowledge, so you can go on your own journey, discover for yourself.
Exactly. Empowering you to dig deeper, ask your own questions, come to your own conclusions. After all, that's what we've been talking about today. That spirit of inquiry, that drive to, blaze your own trail.
So to everyone listening, as you keep, exploring the ideas in Adversarial Light, think about this. Ford presents these figures, Lucifer, Lilith, the Watchers, as like representing different sides of the Luciferian path. So if you had to pick one, just one, to be your guide on your own journey of self-discovery, who would it be? Why? What is it about them, their story, that speaks to you right here, right now? Keep